Continuing now with our story of a deadly home invasion targeting a mom home alone with her kids. That mom has been called a hero for protecting her children from violent intruders, one of whom she killed. Now, questions are piling up about who orchestrated the attack. Think you know? Well, watch what happens. In a head-snapping twist, investigators are about to focus on the last person you'd expect. Again, here's Dennis Murphy.
For years, Mona Weedy had quietly watched the woman who'd shot her son give interviews.
I turned around and then fired at...
A time came when Mona fired back in the local paper.
I did put one small little article in the paper, and I just really asked, why did you kill my son? Tell me why.
The grief and the frustration was taking its toll on Mona's family.
I just felt everybody ripping apart from everybody. I didn't know how to pull him back, and I hurt.
But then on Christmas Eve, 7 years after Dustin's death, Mona got a surprising phone call. Iowa's Division of Criminal Investigation had given the home invasion case file to a cold case investigator. At last she had a reason to hope. Someone else was suspicious of Tracy's story.
I had a hard time making sense out of it because I could not get past her original statement.
Special Agent Trent Valletta noticed a number of inconsistencies in Tracy's statements to police. Basic facts she kept changing, like the number of intruders in the house. Another red flag, the crime scene photos.
Why isn't things broken? Why isn't things on the cupboards or dressers laying on the floor? It didn't make any sense. It looked to me like Dustin just got shot and died.
Had Tracy been lying about what really happened in the house? And if so, why? Agent Valletta came to realize he knew almost nothing about Tracy, the woman at the heart of the crime.
What I did is I slowed down. I went back to the beginning, really, that I could find for her, and that was about 1988.
1988, the year Tracy married John Pittman, the doctor in Virginia. After talking to Tracy's ex and sifting through court documents surrounding their marriage, the investigator realized that Pittman was nothing like the ogre Tracy had described to investigators. Bullying incidents? The doctor said it was Tracy, not him, who'd been abusive. In one memorable set, too, he said she pulled a gun on him.
She turned to me and said, "You're never going to leave this house alive." I was sort of stunned, and next thing I know, she disappears in the bedroom and comes out waving a gun.
Tracy fired the revolver into the ceiling, and Pittman called the cops. He told Agent Valletta that wasn't the end of Tracy's bizarre behavior.
I had this sense of dread began to surround me for about 2 months. I had really bad dreams of death and coffins and things like that.
The philandering husband that Tracy complained about? Hardly. Pittman pulled out surveillance logs and photos taken by a private eye that he said proved it was Tracy, not him, who'd been unfaithful. She'd been spotted kissing another man in a car and fondling another man's legs and buttocks.
And that was a real shocker because it started to look like she almost had a second life that I wasn't aware of. And she hung around with male strippers and, just all kinds of unsavory characters.
Tracy later told people that it was her first husband, not she, who'd enjoyed the company of strippers. She also denied having had affairs. But Dr. Pittman says his private eye warned him he shouldn't take any chances. His life might be in danger.
He said, look, she's already shot at you. Now, the first one always goes in the air, the second one goes over your head, and the third one hits you.
At the end of the day, Tracy's first husband said it was his flat-out fear of Tracy that had ended the marriage, not his infidelity and abuse as she'd claimed. But what about the biggie? Tracy's accusation that Dr. Pittman had sexually abused his own son, Bert. He said none of it was true, and he had a court finding to prove it.
I've never done anything, no inappropriate touching, exposure, grooming, anything.
The cold case investigator believed Tracy's ex was telling the truth. That doctor who'd seen evidence of abuse? She'd been wrong, said Illinois child abuse investigators who had exonerated Pittman back in the day. Even more telling, Agent Valletta thought, was the fact that Tracy had let Bert move to Virginia after her separation from Michael Roberts. If she believed her first husband was an abuser, why would she send her son to live in his care? Tracy Roberts and the truth. Agent Valletta started to suspect that other events in this woman's dramatic life story might not hold up to examination.
Either you have to believe the whole entire world is out to get Tracy, or Tracy's a criminal and she just does bad things.
Agent Valletta took another look at the story of the Chicago dentist whom Tracy claimed had raped her. He'd signed a confession offering to pay Tracy damages, or so she claimed. But the dentist told the cold case investigator that the confession was a forgery.
He basically said she extorted him.
It all made the agent wonder anew about Tracy's relationship with Michael, husband number 2. Sure, people around the farming town didn't care much for the brash businessman, but had he really been abusive to his wife? Back in 2000, Michael had been arrested for that alleged assault on Tracy. But he told the investigator that he'd actually been trying to protect Tracy at the time, not hurt her.
She started kicking holes through both levels of drywall to the other side. Where there was a 220-volt heater.
He showed the investigators photos he said he had taken of those holes. He said Tracy had been about to electrocute herself when he grabbed her and forced her to the floor. As for his stepson's claims that Michael had beaten him,
did these things happen? Breaking his nose, did that happen?
No. I spanked him quite a few times, and I made quite a few mistakes as a parent.
Michael admitted he was a stern father, but said he loved his children and had never hurt them. Michael also denied harassing his wife after their breakup, saying it was the other way around. Tracy was the violent one in the family, he claimed. He says she tried to kill him more than once.
She got me drunk, and she rolled me up in a king-size cotton sheet, very, very tight, pinned me with baby safety pins, and reached underneath or behind the bed and took out a plastic bag and put it over my head.
She put a plastic bag over your head?
Yeah.
The way Michael tells it, Tracy tried to suffocate him.
She's got her hands holding the bag around my neck, and the bag was beginning to get wet from the humidity, so even the bad air that was in the bag, I couldn't breathe because it would stick to my nose.
Eventually, Michael says he managed to break free. He filed for divorce shortly after. But what about Michael's failed polygraph? That had seemed so suspicious to earlier investigators. Michael had an answer for that too. He said yes, the lie detector test had caught him hiding something. But it wasn't that he was the brains behind the home invasion. The machine read his own squirmish doubt, he said, about Tracy's story.
It's hard to answer a question as to, do you know the identity of the second intruder, if you don't believe there was a second intruder.
You couldn't get two more poles apart men than Tracy's 2 ex-husbands, the Australian entrepreneur and the Virginia doctor, and yet both had similar horror stories to tell about their ex-wife. Agent Valletta believed he had uncovered Tracy's true character.
When she got mad at someone, she wasn't mad at them, she was enraged with them. She didn't want someone to be embarrassed, she wanted them to be destroyed.
Agent Valletta was now convinced that much as she'd fabricated her stories about the dentist and both husbands' abuse, Tracy had also fabricated her account of what had happened on December 13th, 2001. Her dramatic description of the break-in, of being chased and choked, her firing deadly shots to protect both herself and her children. Lies, he thought, but he could not figure out why. The answer, it turned out, was tucked away in the 10-year-old case file, a top-secret piece of evidence that was going to break the investigation wide open.
Coming up, investigators may have just found the smoking gun if they can figure out what it means.
I stared at that thing for weeks trying to understand it.
When Twisted continues.